It's pretty much Facebook, Amazon, and Google that run the entire internet. And they are making most of the money because they own most of the assets. And that's been true for the history of all times. The people who own the assets are the ones who end up making the most.
If I come to you, right, and I'm like, why Chia, man? Like, why? Why would I become an adopter, a user?
Like, it is really hard to tell what any particular coin is supposed to be. And that is by design, because in Chia, they said, we don't want all the smart contracts just sitting out there in the wide open, because the security of a coin should be paramount.
0 to 40 million terabytes of storage in 4 months, right? That's, and it had such a huge impact on the entire storage market. I would go as far to say as, this is the future of the internet, personal computing, etc.
Oh, it's finally here. The VoskCoin Tails Edition Chia XCH Farmer by Evergreen. I'm so excited for this. It's their best product release yet, incorporating all of their new upgrades, which includes an additional 5% bump on compression, which is basically more earnings, bringing it to plus 25% boost over their original Evergreen Miner releases. We have been working on this for over half a year. If you've been thinking about getting into hard drive mining or Chia farming, and you want to be the coolest person in the world by supporting the VoskCoin YouTube channel, check out our link below to grab your own VoskCoin Tails Edition Evergreen Miner. Hey everyone, welcome back to the VoskCoin YouTube channel. I'm here with Grant and Dylan of Evergreen Miner. Today we're going to be basically deep diving into Chia XCH and really just everything that's interesting about it, breaking down this cryptocurrency that's also a platform. And one of the top questions when it comes to cryptocurrency is why? Like, why does this token exist? What's the point? Well, that's what we're going to get to. So Grant, Dylan, can you guys tell everyone more about yourselves, how you got into this, and then, above all, why are you spending your time basically building on Chia?
So I've been developing software for the last 20 years, and throughout my career had a lot of different experiences, from medical imaging to making hearing aids, and just run the gamut of different things in a variety of different startup companies. I found myself working on a medical imaging product where we were going to bring medical imaging into the browser. And one of the things that's really important in medical imaging is security. And so they want the product to be as isolated as possible, because if you errantly show data for one patient to somebody who shouldn't seen it, it's really bad. And so one of the things that I knew from my experiences through medical imaging and through solving this particular problem was that if you can completely isolate all of the machines that are running a particular piece of software from everybody else, means that you're not commingling data, you're not multi-tenant, then you've gone a long way towards solving the basic problem that these guys want. So if you can completely isolate the data, you've almost solve the entire problem that they need solving. So this is what we did. We made a bunch of single tenant deployments where the data is completely isolated, and found a lot of traction with the product. Then the first question that we got asked is, well, how can I share data between them? And so that put us on a path of searching for a way to have essentially federated data access. And what that means is you have some other system that allows you to trustlessly and peer-to-peer share data in a way that has a reliability that's better than anything else that you're building on top of. And it just so happened that such a thing existed, and it was called Ethereum. So we started working on Ethereum, and that was really the first chance that I got to build on top of blockchains. And this was in 2015. We got it launched, we spun it out. I worked on a company called Mint Health, where we were using that same basic tech of doing self-sovereign health records inside of Ethereum. I basically got to work inside of ETH for about a good 2 years. And during that whole process, I got a chance to work with Consensus. I had a chance to work with Infura. I worked with Truffle, Ganache, Solidity, pretty much the whole gamut of ETH. And at the end, I found myself really kind of despising it. I didn't like Ethereum. I didn't like Solidity programming. I found that it was incredibly hard to work with, even though the tool suite was pretty decent. It was just really hard to get it right. And even at $300 ETH, the gas fees and everything that I was trying to do was just infeasible, which led me on kind of a wide search to find something else. So we looked at EOS and we looked at kind of everything else that was existing at the time. So this was kind of 2015, 2017, right around when the whole ICO thing was happening. And there just wasn't anything else. But I heard whispers, rumors of a blockchain that might come about someday. Called Chia, that was being built by Bram Cohen. And at the time, I didn't get it at all. I thought it was going to solve like my fee problem, my cost problem for kind of putting a lot of data on chain. And I was completely had a misunderstanding about what it was going to be. Throughout the next few years, worked on a lot of different things in consulting capacities. I had a chance to helm the main chair of several startup companies. Ended up getting another chance to work on ETH again until finally heard about mainnet of Chia launching, got some plots online, and really just fell in love with what had been done on Chia. So, kind of my background, 20 years developing, have experience doing blockchain stuff since 2015 in earnest, and just a veteran startup, founder, just been around the block doing lots of different startup companies. And yeah, just like really fell in love with the Chia blockchain something around late 2020.
I have a mixed information of when Chia started, right? I mean, would you say that it was basically being built in 2018 and then the 1.0 release? I have data that's March of 2021.
Yeah, so 2017 is when I first heard of it, but it was being developed prior to that. So I think it's, kind of founded something like either late 2016 or into 2017. That's somewhere around when it started to my knowledge. And then mainnet launch was, March 2021. But there was like a big testnet effort that was going on in late 2020, like November, December is when they said, hey, this is it. This is the final testnet. After this, we're going live. So it was like, get all of your bugs in, let us know what's going wrong, and we're going to get this thing launched.
And I think, from my point of view, one thing that I think hurt Chia is how fast that coin price went up. Because, around the peak of the 2021 bull run, per CoinGecko, it traded at over $1,600 per coin. So if you had gotten into that early, if you were mining those coins early, it was just crazy. And I just remember seeing the ascent of that coin and how so many people were fumbling over trying to figure out how to mine it and this and that. Just because I've done a lot of mining personally over the years. I was just like, wow, this boat came and went really fast. It's probably too late for me to get involved or seems too risky. And, now a few years later, a lot of people count it out because it's only up, like right now, 17% from its all-time low. But I think that's really exciting. Like, it seems like, well, historically, you haven't even been able to get in much cheaper.
Yeah, not a lot of people know this, but like if you were, in kind of the circles before mainnet launched and you asked, hey guys, like where do you think, like the official team, right? Like what's your prediction model for where the price is going to launch? It was $20. So everyone was basing their farm, their prediction, their models off of a coin price of $20. So obviously and I remember this very clearly, it was some of these early exchanges, I think it was like Huobi or Gate, they started trading IOUs like a week before mainnet launch. And it was like those IOUs were coming out at $1,500. And people still didn't believe it. They're like, nah, that's just whatever. Like, it's not going to come out at $1,500. Because a lot of these people who had big farms were like, if it comes out at $1,500, I'm going to be, a Chia whale tomorrow. And we're going to have a lot of, money, US dollars that we could trade for. And I think a lot of people didn't do that, a lot of holders. But yeah, it's very interesting because even right now, if you go into the Chia Discord, that's the answer that a lot of people will give is like, well, this is kind of where we expect it to be, right? Like if you asked me 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, where I think Chia might, kind of start out, it's at that $20 price point. But obviously, when you start at, $1,500 and there's an incredible amount of emissions rapidly, that's where you go from, 0 to 40 million terabytes of storage in 4 months, right? That's, and it had such a huge impact on the entire storage market. And it was such an incredible experience. But obviously now over the last year and a half, it's kind of smoothed out. And that's, I think, pretty typical for, a lot of networks. When they find rapid adoption, the market kind of always corrects, right? So you're going to have kind of this initial hype. And then as we're seeing now, it's been pretty stable for a while.
Not to get too fixated on price points and things like that, but my biggest gripe with this is that it gets a lot of my opinion, like the wrong people or just people that are a bit more lame into it. It's like, it's crazy that they want to be rich tomorrow per USD. They're dropping a bunch of money building out a hard drive farm, not understanding, what this coin is, what it does, like just not really caring. And they're just trying to turn dollars into more dollars, and they don't see any sort of vision. And then it becomes way overbuilt, and the people that have more staying power, the people more involved, I like to just think of us as like the nerds that actually care, right? You're a lot less likely to join because it's inflated, right? And it takes years for that to correct in crypto. And some people will just stay no matter what. And I only feel that like relatively recently, over the last, let's say year, but especially like 6-8 months, it started to shake out a lot of the people who were kind of sticking around. And now it seems like the next best time, other than simply the absolute beginning, to get involved with Chia, whether, you're mining or you're trying out things on chain. It's exciting to see some developments. We see some, NFTs coming about, marketplaces, decentralized exchanges. I mean, it's finally becoming a platform and not just a coin with inflated hard drive mining earnings. But I mean, you guys know more than me. What do you think?
You bring up an interesting point, which is the price has obviously gone from $1,500 to $30. Me and Grant have been a part of that in the Chia community, and something to call out here is there's certainly a distinction between kind of the Chia community, and that's early farmers, developers, and the broader mining community. And a lot of times these things don't really add up, because in fact, a lot of the people who are mining Chia, this is their first coin that they're mining. And so to your point, it's been really interesting, as the price has gone from 1,500 to 1,000 to 500 to 200, right? Watching kind of people shake out. But eventually, as you said, it kind of hit this point, especially in the Chia community, where now we're in this together. We're kind of linked arms, brothers, and we're going on spaces, and we're trying to figure out how to apply this technology. And so I think that's something that happens a lot in in kind of cryptos that go the distance, and even companies that go the distance. You do have this rapid period of inflation. The markets are great, and this is not exclusive to crypto, right? In startups, you're seeing kind of a similar thing where for 10 years, startups were really able to do whatever they want. The markets are flush with cash. But now, across all markets, you kind of see people really having to dig deep and find value. And that's a lot of who is still in the Chia ecosystem, because to your point, if you're worried about price and price alone, your motives are not necessarily to make technology that's going to stand the test of time. Your motives are to, get in and get out with more money, which is a totally fine goal. But for if you've sat around with Chia, through the decline in price and you haven't left, the chance that you are here to build technology that's going to be around for a long time, the protocols of the next internet, is very, very high. And so, if you're new to Chia and you're coming in as a farmer because it's, the first coin you might want to farm, or it's energy efficient, what's also nice to know is that there's a whole community of developers on the other side of this who are not just looking to figure out a way to, get in and get out when the picking's right. They're actually trying to build applications, real world applications that you, the farmers, are going to benefit from because you're securing their applications. And so that's that's kind of the original ethos of crypto, is you're going to host it and you're going to be a part of this security network. We're going to be core developers building out amazing and rich applications. And the price is not, usually part of that conversation, unless your goal is just to get out when the time is right.
But Dylan, look at yourself. You can't even talk about it without starting to smile.
It gets me excited, man.
You're either passionate, enthusiastic, or as they say in the comments, you're a shill.
So, well, the coffee's hitting, so I can blame the coffee. And it's shilling is there's a fine line. I'll say that. You can really believe in something, but I'm here for the tech, right? I think the thing you're circling around is, there's people who do want to come in, they're looking for the best price. That's not, the wrong goal, but ultimately you're trying to get back into US dollars, right? But a lot of us are here because we don't want to go back, right? We want to move in, we want to set up shop, we want to contribute, and we want to earn, right? And those are all great things. But, the moment where you start thinking about your exit strategy is the moment where you kind of stop paying attention to what are the societal level impacts that this might have, akin to creations like the wheel, right? Currency, the iPhone, all of these incredible technological innovations, right? No one talks about what is the price of, XYZ on these innovations. They're just talking about, how is this going to be used and how is this going to impact my life? And I think Grant would agree, like, we both see that Chia is one of the most primed platforms to actually be used as a new internet protocol. And it's counterintuitive, but in the world that we might live in, you might not even hear about the name of the network, right? You're just using the internet. You don't necessarily think about HTTPS or HTTP, you just go to google.com and look it up. You're not thinking, well, what's their PageRank algorithm? And right. So there's a distinction between the user experience and what's really compelling to both new early adopters and kind of this long-term, how is the internet impacting society? And those are two separate things.
Grant, if I come to you, right, and I'm like, why Chia, man? Like, why? Like, what is the simple answer to why? Assume that I don't know too much. You may actually just simply be right about many things. But why Chia? Why should I check it out? Why should I get into it? What does it do for me? Why would I become an adopter, a user?
Well, I mean, when we talk about Chia, right, and why Chia, it helps to start with what kicked this all off, right? Bitcoin really was the innovation. It was the first thing, Nakamoto consensus, proof of work. These things were all groundbreaking. They built on top of something else in the past. I mean, if you look, there's these cool charts that have like all the innovations that it took to get us to Bitcoin. It's like everything that came before it, whether that have been BitTorrent or eGold or DigiCash or whatever other stuff that sort of incrementally moved things a little bit further along. And then we have Bitcoin that enters on world stage. And at first, no one really pays attention to it. It's like, yeah, it's digital gold all over again. It's like what new internet magic money, whatever. It's not something that's that interesting. But there was a community of people that really believed in it. There was a set of core developers that said, no, this is new. This is novel. This is something that's never been seen before. We're solving the Byzantine generals problem. All these really weird words and cryptographic stuff that entered on center stage. And essentially, what it ushered in was peer-to-peer, trustless digital money, where you didn't have to trust a centralized authority. And that's really important, because if you look at the pantheon of all things that have happened recently, whether it was FTX or whether it was Prime Trust, anything that you can list off where you see this really bad thing that happened, it mostly happens because you have a custodian or you have an intermediary or you have a central authority in whom you thought you could place your trust, and they violate that trust, fundamentally violate it. And it happens so often and so repeatedly that at some point you just say, well, either this is just how things work, or there's got to be a better way to do it. And that's kind of the fundamental supposition or premise of Bitcoin, is that you can do things peer-to-peer trustlessly. Me and Vosk, we can do some kind of interaction. I don't have to trust him. And I don't have to trust some intermediary that's going to hold our money to get something done. So that's Bitcoin in a nutshell. Peer-to-peer electronic digital cash trustlessly. Then you have Ethereum. It enters center stage and it says, we can do something a little bit better. And this something that we can do a little bit better is we can have this programmable money thing that Bitcoin said they were going to do, but never really did. But like, let's really try and just like jump on this thing and get everybody using this peer-to-peer trustless digital money thing. But now let's make it programmable, right? So again, sort of we have the big innovation, and then we have an incremental improvement. And Ethereum has shown that it has, really taken off and done a lot of very interesting things. So now why Chia, right? Like, what did Chia do? Well, again, we're not like reinventing the world here. We're not like building something that's so groundbreaking. There's always stuff that comes before. And so Chia has innovated in a large number of areas where there are things that needed to be improved, could be improved, or that are putting us on completely the wrong path. And the first one of these is just pure energy usage, right? The fact that we're having this conversation at all is because you can do this at home. So many cryptocurrencies are now out of the reach of the average user. And when they're out of the reach of the average user, we no longer have decentralized peer-to-peer electronic cash. We don't have that. What we have is very specific players who can participate. They're either people who have big iron, in the case of chains that have really high TPS throughput and require lots and lots of storage to be able to run those chains over a long period of time, or you need a super fast internet connection. And all of that stuff adds up to there being a high cost per day. And energy is part of that equation. If you have a really high energy input every single day, if you have to feed a $10 bill or a $50 bill into the device you've purchased every single day, a lot of people just don't have that. And if the electrical cost has to be low for it to be profitable, like you can feed a $50 bill into it, and essentially what you're doing is you're buying that crypto at a premium. Now, there's a reason you might want to do that, and we could get into that. But just suffice it to say that for a lot of cryptocurrencies and a lot of miners, they're not profitable. And what we mean by profitable is the energy input requirement, right, in dollars is higher than what you get for actually turning the thing on. So every day you turn it on, you're losing money. So Chia set out to solve that fundamental problem. It's just like, are we on a trend where the electricity usage just keeps going up and we centralize to the people who can either get free or cheap electricity? Or are we on a trend where the electrical usage is mostly going down, which means that anybody, regardless of their electricity price, can still participate in the consensus mechanism of the network? That is like number one. If we can generally solve that, we have a peer-to-peer system that's proof of work style Nakamoto consensus, where the electricity cost is not an insurmountable barrier towards at-home use, then we have broad adoption, widespread utilization, and anybody can run a node. And we've achieved that on Chia. Like, Chia has achieved that.
I really just want to interject and just say, being a cryptocurrency miner, an enthusiast year over year, I really just cannot understate how enjoyable it is to be farming Chia now. And I feel like I kind of overlooked it originally for a few reasons, feeling like I missed this really fast boat. Also participating with VoskCoin, and that was just junk. If somebody does something once and it sucks, right? You're like, well, hard drive mining's stupid, right? And then another opportunity comes, you're like, whoa, that didn't go well last time. I'm not doing that stuff, right? Or, to shamelessly plug the Evergreen Miner, right? Which we have a link and a coupon code down below. Is what's really cool about your miner is this plug and play. And a lot of people will hear a plug and play miner that's low energy consumption and they're like, oh, helium, and that's really disappointing because fundamentally these are so different. Just because you made your miner easy to use, which is what a helium miner was, especially in the beginning before their network became overloaded and they started to suck on every front. And that it's low energy consumption by the nature of just what it takes to run a hard drive, it's completely different. But there's a lot of people that would never there's a lot of people who don't want to participate because they had a bad experience hard drive mining. They had a bad experience with something maybe similar, right? And I mentioned helium, but there's some other things, in that same category. Like MXC is like helium, but somehow even worse. And if you take a step back and you try to get rid of your baggage that you may have, it's really cool and exciting to participate with a blockchain, to run hardware, to be not just a holder of coin and investor, but an active participant, more akin to like a security contributor, right? And that I can do this, and my electric rate could be 5 cents, it could be 25 cents. And I like to use the term like you earn more than you burn, because if you burn more than you earn in electricity, then let's just be frank, it generally speaking, it's pointless, right? If I'm going to spend 2 Chia to mine 1 Chia, I should just buy 2 Chia if I really want the freaking coin. But if I can earn 1 Chia at the electricity cost of a quarter Chia, well, now I'm coming out ahead, by a big margin. That's the very basic example of why would I mine something over buying it. But to bring it back to the point I wanted to make is I just really cannot understate like how refreshing it is. Like Bitcoin miners suck to operate. They're so loud. Like I got to wear Ear Pro in my Bitcoin mining deployment now because it's so loud. It straight up damaged my hearing. It needs a ton of juice. I'm on single phase electricity, and when you start using that much electricity, it doesn't scale well. You really need 3 phase, right? So you talk about more and more and more barriers to entry. You need a cheap electricity rate, all the stuff to deploy Bitcoin mining gear. You really need 3 phase. Obviously, you need a half decent or above all, a reliable internet connection. It's not data heavy, but reliability and latency is your key points there. Like you talked about, it just becomes more and more difficult. It's leaving the hands of the many and it's going to the hands of the few. And how do you fix that? I mean, it's difficult, but I can say that I would rather see Bitcoin on hard drives or even CPUs or GPUs or like just something else.
And I'll give a little background. I'm not, that old in the sense that, I started mining crypto 2.5 years ago, right? And prior to that, I'm just a computer guy, right? I build custom computers, build wearables. That was kind of my bag. But I at first was really compelled by the idea of supporting a network and being an operator, right? You kind of hear that node operator, miner, but what I really like to paint kind of the big picture of is, an idea of a new distributed internet, right? And I think that is an idea that has been tossed around for the better half of 2 to 3 decades now, right? And I think a lot of people, I've seen this before when you hear, I've been working on cryptocurrency 10 years before Bitcoin existed. People will scoff. What do you mean you've been working on Bitcoin or cryptocurrency before Bitcoin existed? But as Grant mentioned, there's been a lot of attempts to create, at least kind of a distributed system for exchanging money. And prior to that, one of the big inspirations was BitTorrent. BitTorrent was the first and kind of really great example of a large scale system where people could share files. Now, the thing about the internet is there's a lot of different parts, but we could break them down. On the internet, you have networking where you have to connect to other peers. That's a pretty solved problem. Connecting to other peers, through kind of these protocols, like BitTorrent does it, Bitcoin does it, Chia does it. Almost every network does peer-to-peer networking. The second part is, the actual file system. The third part is the payments. And I'm kind of walking through these things, right? You got BitTorrent for files, Bitcoin figured out how to do this for money. And then you actually have the programmability of web applications, which is what Ethereum figured out. And kind of speed running through all these things, if you start to combine these pieces into its own system, what you are actually looking at is a distributed entire internet, right? We call it Web3, but a big issue today is because of the centralization, it does resemble Web2 in a lot of ways. And kind of to speak to why Chia, what Chia set out to solve is kind of this fact that, let's look at a distributed internet and what can computers run. And the hard thing that happened when ASICs took over, there is the problem of energy and people without energy not being able to solve it. But a second problem that people don't necessarily look at is ASICs can only do one thing. It can only produce hashes. So how do you think about creating a distributed internet that can store, that can compute applications, that can host, that can network, that can do all these things beyond just producing hashes? Now, if you could also have that same system that produced hashes, you'd be in, a really good position. So now with Chia, you've got computers that produce hashes. And this is a key concept, and we can definitely dive a bit deeper into this. Chia, just like a Bitcoin miner, Evergreen, just like a Bitcoin miner, is producing or emitting hashes to the network. It's telling the network, hey, I've got hashes. You should reward me because I've got hashes and I'm contributing to security. But what's very cool about Chia and the Evergreen devices is that takes such a small part of the computer. So now you have a computer that is incentivized to join the network, be on 24/7, run out of somebody's home, but also can run all of these other applications. It can store things, it can host websites, it can communicate with other devices, right? So that's kind of when you really think about why Chia, you look at this box, right? And if you compare it to an ASIC, obviously it can fit in anybody's home on a solar panel, but it doesn't just stop at, like Helium or Bitcoin. It does one thing, right? In the case of Bitcoin, it produces hashes. In the case of Helium, it routes network packets, right? But that's it. Whereas in Chia and on Evergreen specifically, we say we are more than a miner, because at some point, I'd like to get away from saying, the personal miner, what you're mining crypto. I think really what it becomes is you are powering the internet. And in exchange for powering the internet, you get to access the internet. And it becomes a new paradigm, right? What Web3 really means is people participate at home in a direct way. They're not going through an intermediary. They're not asking an exchange to do it for them, which is mostly what proof of stake does. Their computer is offering real world value to the network by putting hashes out for security, by offering storage, by offering compute. And in exchange, they get some token and can do the same thing on other network computers. And, that to me is the beauty. We're not leaving the system to go to other chains or other currencies. You earn, you spend, you contribute, and nobody outside of you and who you decide to interact with in this peer-to-peer network can touch you. And I think, to me, that's like the vision. I think we're still a ways away from that, but it's hard for me to envision any other network at this point doing it, because you don't have a network that actually has these devices that both produce security via hashing and allow you to run a myriad of applications that are required for most people's daily internet usage.
For me, I think that Bitcoin has, in a way, pigeonholed itself. Is like, it's digital gold, it's digital money, and that's kind of it. And as much as I love Bitcoin and champion Bitcoin and believe in Bitcoin, everyone's saying that it's more than that. As it stands, it's not. And like a centralized sidechain isn't scaling. That's not what I'm looking for. I've always thought like general purpose hardware, especially if you could combine something, right? So like you have a decent little CPU, you have a hard drive aspect, maybe you have a GPU for like a different type of computing, and you merge this all into one unit, and you have just, you have hardware that you can deploy in the hands of many to deploy your network in a grassroots manner. I think that's so incredibly cool. And it's almost like you're giving out like toolkits. Like imagine you go to every homeowner and you give them the Home Depot toolkit starter homeowner special, right? You give everybody something or the kit, and then they can build with that. They can utilize that. But if all you do is go to everyone's house and all you do is give everyone a hammer, well, that's all they've got. That's all they can work with. So like, yeah, great. The town's great at hammering, but they're not, multifaceted to any degree.
Well, and just, one more thing, and I think I want to pass it back to Grant for some comments, but I'm always really, inspired by, and it's very classic, right? The Apple kind of quote, like, what is an Apple computer? Because I'd like to think that on our mission, we're trying to do something similar. We're trying to take the mainframe, which was only accessible to large entities, and bring it down to the personal computer. And the analogy is the bicycle for the mind, right? I'm the first to say I don't know if I have that analogy quite yet for kind of what Evergreen or what the personal miner. And again, I'm still, I think we're so early that I don't even have the terminology to kind of label what it is. But it's a similar idea, right? If the Apple computer is the bicycle for the mind, the Evergreen miner or kind of having a Chia setup or any setup that has all these different things where you're earning and contributing, there's something there. And so I would go as far to say is, this is the future of the internet, personal computing, etc. I'm going as far to say that every device in the future will be part of a network providing security with hashes. And that is, something that I think Chia has really championed. There's, if you take all the storage in the world, it is 95% unused for most of its lifetime. So it's a very simple idea of what if, in the same way you might want to use flare gas to mine Bitcoin, what if we could use all the unused storage, fill it with hashes, and that's how we secure the network. We're going to have a damn secure network that is not that energy intensive on every single computer in the world. And I think that's possible.
And just to add a quick aside, like the one thing I think of, I think Chia is one of the closer things to be even able to solve, say, like this problem, right? Let's say like you take World of Warcraft, popular game, subscription fee, right? Their servers, they have all this stuff. They have cosmetics, or simply in-game items, a la NFTs, right? Digital collectibles. So let's say you take like just the personal miner, right? And instead of paying the subscription fee, that like you can pay this fee or you can run this device. You crowdsource it. It's decentralized. There's redundancy. You create a chain. It processes those transactions. There's transparency. How many of the Frostmourne mythical sword are there, right? Well, we know, we can see it on chain, and it's the same way. Like you could decentralize some of that storage. There's just so many things that can be done that at least I think would be interesting. Are they realistic? Will people really do it? They have to be incentivized, and it has to be easy. It has to be as simple as like just plugging it in, right? And all of the other hard work is done like to really be used at scale. And but I personally just would love to see things like that. And I think above all, what people need to realize the most important part is trying to retake some ownership. Instead of having any asset, whether it's like a digital file download software you pay for, or in-game items, in-game currency being tied to your account, centralized server, centralized everything, you have ownership with this device, right? Like it's just simple, not your keys, not your coins. Like none of this stuff is really yours.
With respect to digital ownership and ownership of anything, right? I think there's been this idea in the world that it's just okay to be a renter and to just not really have anything yourself that's really yours. I think that's kind of a dangerous idea, and I think it's antithetical to freedom in a lot of ways. I don't think when people really hear that idea, they get super excited about it. It's like, oh, I'm just going to rent and nothing's really going to be mine, and I'm just going to exist at the behest of somebody else. And I think that it harkens back to what we were talking about earlier when it comes to whether we actually can put our trust in somebody else. When you're renting, you're kind of at the mercy of the landlord, right? And that's kind of what happens on ETH and smart contracts in a lot of ways, in the way they're implemented in many of the cryptocurrencies that you're maybe more familiar with. Because the centralized smart contracts that exist don't allow for true digital ownership, because you're renting space inside of their smart contract. Your digital asset, your NFT, whatever. It's an entry in that particular thing. And you cannot move it around. You cannot really operate it unless you're doing so through their smart contract. And that means if there's some backdoor or something that exists or some flaw in that contract, it means everything's at risk simultaneously all at once. Versus in something that looks more like Chia, which allows for true digital asset ownership, there is no ability for someone to take it away from you. And it is similar to when you're running a device, which is in your own home. As long as you're controlling physical access, that device is, at your disposal and within your sphere of influence, no one's going to take it away from you. But that changes if your server is running in AWS. When someone else is in control of your device, in control of your electricity, in control of your hardware, you're not participating in a peer-to-peer network. You're not participating in something for which you have direct ownership. You're just a renter. And that means that somebody who decides that they don't like what you're doing or they don't like what this network is doing can shut it off. And that is not the kind of world that I think a lot of people want to live in. Like, they want the freedom to be able to be who they are and express themselves how they want, and they don't want intermediaries controlling their life. And I think that's what we've gotten into with Web 2, and it's the thing that I think Web 3 needs to focus really carefully on to ensure that decentralization is the basic tenet for how we approach anything, whether that's the control of the digital assets that you may be producing or consuming or taking ownership of, or whether it's the systems that you're interacting with, and that you actually have a stake in the game and that you can directly participate without having to just pay money. Because if you're just paying money, then someone can take it away from you. And that means the network can be taken away from us. And it really should be peer-to-peer and decentralized.
Well, Grant, I just want to add that I think that trend is rampant, right? We've continued down this road of subscription software versus ownership of software. We've moved away from physical mediums on a lot of fronts, right? I mean, 20 years ago, you bought software, you had a disk, like you at least had this. There's centralized servers and things like that, and you bought like the finished product, right? Now it's subscription. You never own anything, and the age-old dream where you gotta rush to own a home and things like that's been fading in a way, like for a lot of reasons, but everything is trending towards you rent everything, you lease everything, you really don't own anything. We do all this digital stuff, we have this digital software, you buy a game, it's straight digital. You're not even buying straight up copies anymore. Oftentimes you're paying subscription services and you technically don't own anything. You're just continually renting this. And it kind of trends towards that whole dystopia overlord thing where we're just little peasants and peons and we're under their thumb and just we have nothing. And I think one of the reasons I'm really into cryptocurrency is that this puts some of the power back into the hands of the people. Even if you just take, say, Bitcoin and we treat it as just digital money, then at least we're taking, we have some sort of the people's currency. We have some sort of the internet money, as opposed to just being entirely enslaved by the US dollar or other fiat currencies. It's terrifying. The more technology that we get in the hands of the government can lead to more and more centralization, which just leads to more and more total control.
Well, what's kind of ironic about what you said is if you actually think about, most of the services that you use, with the exception of literally just a couple, they're also just renting servers from someone else, right? So it's kind of this chain of you rent a service, you rent a software, and they're not even running it on servers they own. They're just renting it from someone else. And, I said with the exception of a couple because it's pretty much Facebook, Amazon, and Google that run the entire internet. And they are making most of the money because they own most of the assets. And that's been true for the history of all times. The people who own the assets are the ones who end up making the most. And so, just tying this all back, I really want to reiterate that I think what I'm drawn to, my why, whether you call it Chia, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever you want to call it, as long as we get to a point where everything doesn't just end back at those same four companies, right? That it actually ends back at you, right? And I kind of always say this, with a miner, you almost get this idea of cash back. When I spend, I'm actually paying myself back. Those fees are ending up going back to me. But in the rest of Web 2, when you rent, when you do any transaction, the fees are not going to you. They're going to a very small set of companies. And it's such a compelling idea that anybody could get those fees. And that to me was my kind of why, is I really wanted to give people the ability to own it at the lowest level, right? Own it at a level that there's no one behind them. There's no things that they're renting. The moment you buy this device and set it up, everybody else now has to come to you and give you money to use your resources, which is, the ultimate goal for anyone, I think.
It's better. It's just
better.
It's just doing better as a whole. Grant, I wanted to ask you this question before we get too far down another road. Is you said that Chia gives you real ownership, right, of your assets. How? Like, what's the simple way of how? And like what are they doing that like really gives you that ownership over, say, even something like Ethereum, right?
So in Chia, it's a coin set model. And that means that the way that we represent everything, whether it be the base layer token, or it could be some sort of a other user created token, similar to an ERC20 or an NFT, anything like this, it's all represented fundamentally as a coin. So you can think about this just like coins that you might put in your wallet, coins that you might put in your pocket. And I'm talking about like a euro or a quarter, right? These are hard, physical, tangible things that you like walk around with and you hand it to somebody. When you hand them that coin and you pay for something, buy a coffee, buy a book, they give you some change back for whatever that value of the thing that you purchased, the good or the service, right? So you don't always have the exact amount of money. And sometimes you need multiple coins to pay for the good or service that you're buying. Like maybe the coffee you're buying is €5 or €2 or whatever, and you'll have multiple coins that it takes to do this. Or you're buying a coffee and it costs you, like $4 or something. So you give them a $5 bill. In Chia, this is how the cryptocurrency is represented as coins. And so each coin can have a different value that is associated with it. And so when we're talking about ownership in Chia, what you're doing with the blockchain is there are certain coins that are under your control. They're under your control because you have the correct keys to spend those coins. So every coin is just in one of two states. It's either spent or it's not spent. This is very similar to how Bitcoin works, but it is not at all how Ethereum works. In Ethereum, you don't have coins and they aren't spent or unspent, and you don't have this sense of ownership of them. What you do is in Ethereum, you go to a smart contract which holds the balance of how much you have. So it says, I have 50 ETH or 20 ETH or whatever, or I have some amount of this ERC20. And that balance just changes over time. And so that smart contract was created by someone. And oftentimes that contract can be upgraded, changed, or altered. And so the balance that you have is more like renting. It's more like you have a little bit of space in this contract and this little bit of space is yours. And I'm going to pay a certain amount of money so that I can change the state of this contract, which I don't own, which I'm not in control of fundamentally. But this little corner of it is mine. So it's more like that renter model. In Chia, you have these coins, and these coins are inherently opaque. They are completely unknown to the outside world. Like, it is really hard to tell what any particular coin is supposed to be. And that is by design, because in Chia, they said, we don't want all the smart contracts just sitting out there in the wide open, because the security of a coin should be paramount. Like, every single one of your coins should be very secure. And that includes not telling everybody how it's secured, but you do need to tell everyone how it's secured when you spend it. So in Chia, this sense of ownership is because you have these coins, they're in your control, you know how to look for them, you know how to aggregate them into a certain way that shows you how much you would have of certain different types of assets. And then when you want to, you can spend them, move them, or transfer their ownership to somebody else. That's what ownership looks like, your ability to control a thing. I think Dune said it kind of similar. He who has the ability to destroy a thing is he who that controls the thing. And in Chia and in Bitcoin, it's he who has the ability to spend a coin controls the coin. So that's sort of what I mean by the ownership of digital currency on Chia being more like true ownership, because you're in control of it and you're in control of whether that coin ever gets spent or not spent. So long as you don't do something silly like leak your mnemonic or lose your private keys or something like that. As long as that basic thing is sacrosanct, you're good. Now, there's a day coming where on Chia, even that will be less important. And that's the bright future that exists on Chia, where we even move beyond mnemonics for security and into advanced forms of custom.
Yeah, and if I could piggyback on that, just to kind of throw some high level points here. So Chia and Bitcoin use the same style of ledger, and what that means is that on every one of the devices that runs a full node, and for the miners that add blocks to the full node, if you were to introspect on what those blocks contain, it is a list of coins. And Grant mentioned those coins are either spent or unspent. That is something that Bitcoin uses and Chia inherits as well. Really, the only difference with Chia is the spending of the coin can spawn a customizable program, a Turing complete program, which means you can program it to do anything. In Bitcoin, that functionality is not directly available. The only thing that happens directly on Bitcoin when a coin is spent is a new Bitcoin is generated, or a series of new Bitcoins are, let me rephrase that, not a Bitcoin, a coin, right, is created, which can have a certain amount of Bitcoin inside of it. So the difference on most chains now is their ledger is not a list of coins. Their ledger is a list of accounts. It's called the account model, and the balances that those accounts have. So there really isn't even an idea of owning anything, right? Because you just have your account, and the ledger, which is hosted on, in the case of Ethereum, 30% of them are on AWS. So AWS has a bunch of servers that have your list of your account value. And if that were to somehow be corrupted, it would be gone. But in Bitcoin and in Chia, the list is of your coins, right? And it's as Grant said, it's not easy to tell when you look at someone's coin. What does that mean? How much is in it? Who owns that? You have absolutely no idea what that is. But in an account model, you can look at an account. You can say that's somebody's account. That's your account, right? Vosk, if you look on Ethereum's ledger, that's your account right there. It's just on a list, and it doesn't really feel great. When I learned that and understood it, I was like, I don't want my account on blast. That doesn't make any sense.
They try to make me cool. I got one of those .eth names, so it's like, yeah, that's my stuff.
Right. You don't even own that, right? It's some list, right? And it's like, here's the
model.
Exactly, right? And here you go. You get to be on the list, right? You pay to be on the list. That's not how it works. There's no lists. It's you own it, man. Like, hey guys, I've got this thing. And you know why I've got it? Because I can spend it. And me and only me can spend it. That's how you know it's mine. But until that moment, you're not going to know it's mine, and you don't need to know.
So as we kind of approach the end of this, I wanted to ask both of you, what's kind of next for Evergreen? Let's kind of bring it back to Evergreen Miner, which is the business you both are working on, created. And we touched on it earlier, but just to make sure people understand, you make a plug and play Chia Farmer. You have your own application, which I think is really cool. To me, I kind of get like MetaMask vibes, but I can also control my miner because not only does it act as a wallet, a miner dashboard, a controller, you can also utilize NFTs in it, and of course, coins and tokens on chain. Right now, you've got 3 different main models: your starter kit, then the starter kit plus, starter kit pro, and your expansion packs, which basically all have your hub, and then the different models have different hard drive quantities attached, or the expansion pack, or just additional hard drives. So that's kind of like the quick overview of what you have, a snapshot in time right now. But where is Evergreen going? What are you doing? What are you building? What can you share with me here, other than the recent news of the added compression, which is really cool. And my compressed miner is killing it. And well, after this, I want to ask, how do I send these other ones back and upgrade the compression? Where's the compression upgrade? Give me. I want that on the drop down.
I think delivering value to our customers, right, is kind of the North Star. Like when Dylan and I talk about what do we want to do for our customers, for our community, it's always about delivering value. And that is why we delivered compression as one of the first big main targets that we wanted to go after. That ability to say, with the same drive, you can earn more. Like that was really important to us. And that path that it required us to go on was largely to be in control of our own destiny as a company, right? And that means writing more software. Like Evergreen, in a lot of ways, is a vertically integrated software and hardware company. It's the synthesis of the two that is such a powerful idea. And it's kind of what makes Apple so awesome as a company. They make the computer, they make the operating system, they make the watch. You know, all of this stuff can work together so seamlessly because it's one company that's producing all of this stuff together. So the mobile app and the hardware and the operating system that we produce, all of these things work really well together. And with the release of our Lite Farmer, now allows us to get even more exotic, which allowed us to immediately bring in the compression standard that was released by Chia. So bumping those earnings up and making the device more powerful was something that was dead in our sights for what we wanted to do.
You run it through this real quick and it's really exciting, but what's the Lite Farmer, right? Like, so what is the Lite Farmer and how is that different than what came before?
So a Lite Farmer means that you can run a device without having to directly have the full database on your machine. That might sound weird. You might sound like, well, who does have that, right? Is this some kind of a centralized thing? And in some ways, it means that there's a full node somewhere that you're talking to that is distributing interesting information to you so that you can participate in the consensus, but you don't have the actual coin database. That allows us to make a very reliable device. And that was our first goal, which was to make a very reliable device. So we're getting signage points, we're getting information from outside of the device. We're able to use the plots and the hard drives to actually produce valid blocks or to produce responses to the pool. So the Lite Farmer is connecting to some entity outside of it, getting signage points so that it can participate in the consensus of the network and also so that it can respond validly to the pool. So kind of, you know, how things are functioning in a cryptocurrency is you're participating in the consensus of the network. So you have to be able to produce things that are valid for the network. But typically you're also interacting with another entity, which is the pool. This way that you have, you know, common enterprise with other people so that your rewards aren't all or nothing, so that you can participate broadly. And I think a lot of your viewers will well know a pool, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about what pools are, but you're talking to the other full nodes that exist inside the network to get the information necessary for the participation in the consensus, but then you're also talking to the pool so that you can respond to challenges from the pool. So kind of you're doing two different things. And what the Lite Farmer does is it can do this without having to have the full database on the machine. And that means that you remove one of the reliability pinch points within the operation of the device.
And so we outlined compression and the Lite Farmer, and you've delivered on compression for Evergreen. So what's next? More compression? Something else? Something secret?
Yeah, let me take a crack. So at a high level, I'm going to keep saying this. Our goal is to be more than a miner. What we feel like we've done is, at a base level, incentivized people to buy this device because they're earning rewards. And with the addition of compression, we're now, caught up with the network, if not, kind of the most efficient way to do this. We believe with the software, the stack, the single board computers. So we've built this really good base where when people buy the device, they're earning. But for me, as I've alluded to a lot, the question now is, what are you going to spend those earnings on? A lot of people want to hold and stack, but I think we could all agree that a network must have utility. We really want to avoid going down the same path that helium did, where the only utility was you earn the helium, but there was nothing to do with it, right? So now in the next phase of Evergreen, we're trying to get something to do with it, right? And I'm going to allude back to Apple here. They had a really great computer with the Apple One that was for hobbyists who wanted to program, who wanted to look at the board and see what it was. But they had to come up with a killer app. And so for us, I think that is our next exploration, is finding these applications that make it very compelling to use the app, to spend your Chia, to own the device. And this doesn't have to be, aping in all your Chia to the latest Chia collection. For Chia to transact, you can spend a trillionth of a Chia, right? 50 mojos. It's nothing, but you should be using it. If you're earning it, you should be transacting. So in our app right now, you can register your name. You can claim tokens, but we want to take it further. We want to be able to interact with other services on Chia that allow you to trade with other people, that allow you to message other people. And we also want to be able to host your files, right? You've got this storage, you got this hard drive, whether that's you personally hosting your own data or sharing data with your friends. These are things that Chia exclusively enables that you can actually transact with in Chia. So we're creating kind of this, circular economy with applications. And that's really the next push for us is making this thing useful for our customers beyond the earnings.
So is that a cryptic way to say you're developing some kind of cool app behind the scenes that we don't know about?
Apps.
Ooh.
I mean, it's, we've already developed apps. I mean, you can go and register your name right now. That's an app. You could say a DApp, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's not even about us having to be the ones. There's an amazing community of builders. It's not us. It's not for us, right? We've done a lot of the groundwork, but I really do believe that the next wave of kind of evergreen adoption is going to come because some amazing developers in the Chia community have created full stack applications that work really well on Evergreen. And it's not just about, getting your NFT or earning your tokens. It's about the entire experience. It's about, the store, the engagement, the communication. And so I think in the next year, we're really going to see an interesting turn where people are buying evergreens for much more than, trying to just get earnings on Chia, which is great, but there's got to be more than a miner. And that's our punchline.
So you reminded me, I'm doing my token claim right here.
Every day, man, you gotta stack your tokens. But we keep getting the question, what do I do with my tokens, right? And I think we want to give people what they want. They want to do stuff with the tokens. We hear people loud and clear. They want to do stuff with the tokens.
It's better to have some tokens and be trying to figure out what to do with them than to have no tokens and to also know what to do.
Well, the first thing you can do with your token is you can give it to a friend and then they get the background too. I mean, I love the idea of degen. What can I get? But I really also love the idea of share the love, man. There's a great wide world of just being friendly with people, and you have an NFT and the token that you're able to claim moving forward is going to be rarer and rarer that anybody would even have one of those, because those batches were when we were a young company and a little company. And when more and more people have an evergreen, the batch 2, the batch 3, the batch 4, the batch 5 tokens, those are going to be really desirable. So you should keep claiming them just for the sake that when somebody hits you up and you're like, I got you, I can give you one of those cool backgrounds because I know you missed out when those things first came out, and I'm willing to just spread the love around.
And I just recorded just how easy it was to register a .xch name in the app, and I'm gonna put on this video. But wow, that was really easy. I'm not just saying that to gas you guys up or anything. Using ENS, it wasn't bad, but what I just did was even easier, and reducing the friction just leads to more participation. And for me, one of my personal missions with the VoskCoin YouTube channel and just the content side of everything we do is to increase participation, to show people that if you do want to do this, also here's why it's cool. here's how you can, and it doesn't have to be that hard or that complicated. And if you take a deep breath, like, you can do most things in cryptocurrency or participate and have a basic understanding of what's going on, so you have a good level of safety. And it's basically just the point is that was a breeze, and that's cool. And it really can't be understated how a lot more goes into something to just make it easy and simple. And sometimes people realize.
One final point, right? Why Evergreen? Why Chia? I don't think, and I'm open to being wrong, I don't believe that there is another experience in crypto today where someone with zero experience, and I'm talking zero experience in crypto, can in 5 minutes, and you can quote me on this, we can time it, we can do a test. In 5 minutes, we'll be earning rewards consistently without having to touch anything from the network, no KYC, get an NFT, register their name, and soon a lot more in 5 minutes. That's our goal, right? To do everything you might want to do in crypto with zero experience and no intermediaries very quickly. And I think we're getting pretty close. If what you just told me is true, I think we're getting pretty close.
Well, let's put that on the record. If you're watching this video, give it a spin, 5 minutes. If it's more than that, Dylan said that he'll send you 20 Bitcoin. So,
no, I did not.
Sorry, Dylan.
I never said that.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. Dylan at Evergreen. Just kidding. But seriously, it's an absolute pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for cutting out the time to do this. I don't think this will be the last time that I want to have you all on. And in addition to subscribing to the VoskCoin YouTube channel, Evergreen has multiple things outside of their website. Namely, I noticed you guys are really active on Twitter. And I saw the new video looking pretty cool. So any final comments or remarks you want to leave as we walk out the door?
Anything I would say would just be a joke.
Yeah, just drop the joke now.
Cheer to the moon.
Oh, it's over, Dylan. We're cutting that.
I know. That was the thing. We're mooning tomorrow.
Is that financial advice?
Not financial advice. It is legal advice. No, it's not legal.